But I think that the biggest thing for you is it's follow up is king. The key is in that follow up, and what are you doing to make sure you're closing that loop as far as the prep of a listing.
Hey guys, welcome back to Realestatable, your go-to podcast for raw, real, and relevant information in the real estate world. Today, we are talking about prepping and staging homes.
We are super passionate about this subject and excited to talk to you guys about low cost ways that you can help elevate your listings. Because right now, I think that's such a hot topic. Like listings are sitting on the market a little bit longer in most parts of the country. And how can you make sure that you're maximizing the return, minimizing the amount of time on market? And we're going to go through all of that with you guys today.
All right, give it a listen. All right, when we're talking about prepping and staging homes, the first thing that comes to mind is you want to make a first good impression.
Yeah, for sure.
People are looking online at houses, so the pictures, I mean, you want it to be decluttered and all of that kind of stuff, but the first impression is online. So you have to prep the home properly.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that people think about is that okay, if I'm staging a house, I need to have a service that's doing this. I need to pay for a service that's doing this. I need to transfer the cost to a seller. And what we want to talk to you guys today about is a no cost approach for our clients. So it's just a value add part of your UVP. It's what we do on every single listing, regardless of the price. And no joke, we've had $50,000 listings up to $1.5 million dollar listings. Now, are they getting the same decor and the same amount of time and attention to this approach? Well, not really, because it's all size relative. That $50,000 house was about 500 square feet.
That was like
And
literally my listing, my first listing.
it was. But we still went through the whole process. And then 1.5 million, is 5,000 square feet. So no, we're not using the same approach, but we are using the same concept of that. So when you're looking at this, we're challenging you guys to consider changing the way that you approach every listing, using this as a way to be able to gain more listings, and really elevating the return for you as well as your clients. So when we're talking through all of this, maybe you're staffing some assistance, but it's not. Turn it over to a staging company. Now you could be doing that. That's not what we're talking about today, though. We're talking about making this a applicable thing for you essentially in house. We definitely have had staging helpers,
Yes, yeah.
listing coordinators.
But I feel like when back in the day, it was just you doing it with anybody on team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on your time approach. If you have 5 listings a year, yeah, you don't have to staff this. If you have 5 listings a month, you're going to need a little bit of assistance, but it's not anything that we're doing. Like it's not, you have to have a degree in home interior design, etc. Well, when I first started doing this, a while ago, years ago, I would take the photos that my buyers were attracted to, the houses that they were attracted to, and I would look to see what those listings were doing, and how I should be applying that to my listings. So, what were those listings like? What was attracting my clients, and how could I use that to better my listings? And so that was the first step. And baby Tiffany, really no guidance, not in a strong company that had a lot of training support, etc. But then on top of that, it wasn't the digital world of real estate as much, but I knew that I could be doing better and I could be doing better for my clients. So when you're looking at this, I think that you start with, what does your listing look like online? What is it that you're seeing in your listings that needs to be changed, and use that approach as you're moving forward?
Yeah. So I always feel like whenever I go to a listing appointment and I'm explaining kind of like the prep process and how we're going to come in and do XYZ, you start with decluttering.
Yeah.
I'm always like, what items can you pre-pack and put in the garage or tuck in a closet to get it out of the way? Whether that's kids' toys or clutter on the counter or clutter on bookshelves, whatever it is, whatever looks like maybe cluttery to you as the agent, just tell them to pre-pack it. I always tell people, your family pictures on the wall, you're going to be moving. Just take them down and pre-pack them. They'll be ready to go and hang up in your new house as soon as you get there.
Yeah, I like the pre-packing verbiage of that,
Yeah.
because it's not like, hey, let's declutter. You're
Mhm.
giving the impression that a lot of people think, oh, my house is perfect. You're telling them, oh, get rid of your clutter. No,
Mhm.
let's get ahead of the packing. And I know we have the kickback from a lot of sellers that, well, I'm not doing the packing. We have movers that are coming in. I still think it doesn't necessarily have to be packed up into boxes, like actually packed to move. It can be pulled into, like Ashlee said, closets, garages, etc. So pre-packing for the packers that are going to be packing to be able to move you. Just thinking of all of the things we've had to overcome to get those folks that think that they are just sitting on a gold mine of a listing. Like, what are those things that we've had to overcome over the years?
Oh
Oh,
my
my
gosh.
house is so perfect. So many
Rem-
things.
I just remember, I mean, and not every seller is going to do what you expect them to do, right? So I had a listing in Kentucky that was a labor of love, I would say, throughout the whole process. But I showed up, I checked it 2 or 3 times before photos, and we moved the photos because I'm like, your house is just not ready. She had like 3 big dogs, 2 parrots, a bunch of cats. Like it was just like pets, kids, toys, laundry, like it was everywhere. And I remember Sabrina came to help me. Like I
Oh,
was like sweating to death
I'm
before
trying to
these
narrow
pictures.
down these listings, and I was like, who had all the cats and all the things? I feel like it's all of the listings. I have too much stuff. Too much stuff.
Cooper Drive.
Yes, I know.
um,
I just thought about it afterwards. I was like, oh gosh, I've tucked it into my left
yeah.
brain
Well,
cells.
I mean, Mark even came with his truck
Yeah.
to haul things to their
Yeah.
storage unit the day of photos. And it's funny because I remember sending you pictures of like angles that looked okay. I was like, it's going great, like approve, but there's a pile behind me.
Of
But
all of the things.
it was, yeah. But I mean, that's that's part of the service, right? So they didn't take my advice, but their house was not picture perfect. And so I came in prior an hour and a half, 2 hours before the pictures, and because I just knew it wasn't going to be
Yeah.
ready. But they were ready to list, and so I came. I bought boxes. I boxed up their stuff. I did the pre-packing and hauling to their storage unit.
I think that's an extreme case. I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure.
well, I definitely think when I think through the years, there's been times like elderly that have needed some assistance, etc. We have the approach for sure, whatever it takes. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have been painting shutters, front doors, landscape. We have done all kinds of different things to help aid in the whatever it takes mentality. I think that that's where I say, for the agent that has 5 listings a year, 1 listing a year, versus the agent that has 50 listings a year, you're going to need some assistance to keep up that UVP for sure, the more successful you become, because this will yield more return for you, more listings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that going through, and when we think about staging and setting the stage to sell, 90% of the process is getting them to a place that we even can put a plant, that we can even put a new fresh towels. It's not, if you do nothing else, if you are like, nope, I don't have the resources, things have shifted and they've changed, I cannot buy, I cannot do anything, you absolutely can give of your time to make sure that you're setting the stage better than you are right now, 100%. And so I think that when you're going through and you're looking at like decluttering, in like the cleaning process, all of that stuff, it's partnering with the sellers. And like what Ashlee just said, she went to visit this property 2 to 3 times. So when you're sitting in a listing appointment, you talk about the partnering with them through the process of prepping. And I always talk to sellers and I say, most of your work is going to be before the sign is in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Once the sign is in the yard, then that's where we're getting to work and we're doing the marketing. We're really pushing for that max return. But most of your work is going to be getting up to that point that we go active, and then maintaining the house at that point. So it's getting them prepared for this concept of, no, it's not going to just be pictures are scheduled tomorrow. We need a longer time period of prep.
Yeah, and not every house has to be perfect.
Yeah.
There's houses that you just do your best at some of them, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. And I think it's all relative. Like doing your best at 1.5 million in our market wouldn't be enough. Doing your best at 50, 100, 200, 300, they all relatively speaking, and how you're priced for the market, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So with the decluttering and the cleaning and all of that stuff, what would you say when you're going from a listing appointment? So we're sitting down, we're talking about this partnering concept. You've got a listing agreement signed, and now you're going through. Can you talk about your approach room by room? Like, how do you set it up where it's not super overwhelming for the client, but they have clear and concise instruction to at least get moving forward until that next, what we call recheck, listing recheck?
So I have my clients show me their house. So I kind of walk through, I look at it like an agent, but also looking at it like a buyer. What would I notice if I'm buying this house?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I'm looking for. So I'm like, is the paint okay? Does the carpet look okay? Are the baseboards dirty? Have they dusted their fan? Just stuff like that, where it's like maybe some of the maintenance items that you kind of ignore over the years of homeownership, when they start to catch up on you when you go to sell, you're like, oh, wow, there's a dent in the wall or whatever you find behind furniture, whatever it might be. But I just walk through the house with the client. I don't say too much during the initial walkthrough, but I'm taking mental notes, and we go to sit down to discuss the marketing and the staging, I have an idea. Okay, in your kitchen, we want to clear off the counter, so I don't want anything on the counter. We'll come in and put the stuff on there. The bathrooms, clearing the counters, same thing really, but just picking up, decluttering, getting rid of that excess and cleaning.
So for you, your approach is basically show me your house.
Mhm.
Let's sit down and talk about my UVP and your pricing, or however, whatever approach, depending on your history with the property.
Mhm.
Then you go through and you talk about, like, room by room, kind of, hey, here's our to-do list.
Yeah, and some
Hmm.
clients will walk me back through the house. Like,
Yep.
can you just show me specifically what I need to do in this room and then this room? And every seller is different, so my approach kind of is different for each
Each
person
person.
too.
Yep. Yeah, depending on, and I also think it depends on the history with them too.
Yeah.
And I think that we, with prior buyers, we are, I want to say training them, but coaching them, partnering with them, so many different ways that you can address this. I think that when it comes time to think about a move, the first thing they're thinking about is us.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times we get in front of a client way before a listing agreement or pricing or anything is being talked about. Like right now, moving into the third quarter of 2024, already talking to people that are
Mhm.
making moves in 2025. But what we're doing is preparing them for what needs to be done for the house now. And especially to those that don't have a lot of money. So it's like,
Mhm.
I've been talking for 6 months now on a family that may or may not make a move this year, but probably will make it next year. But they needed time to be able to do the things, and that we're talking like the $300 fix, the $400 fix.
Mhm.
They needed time and the ability to be able to do that over a longer range of time. So I think that for me, a lot of times when I'm walking through, it is literally just a value add and not so much the actual securing of the listing, securing of the conversation about UVP. Do you typically write down for your client? I know all of us have different approaches on our team. Do you write down their to-do list?
I will send something like
A
either
follow-up?
email or text, like, "Hey, it was so great to meet with you today. Just a friendly reminder. Here's some of the things I'd like you to, or we talked about you taking care of before staging or whatever." I mean, again, the timelines are so different.
So yeah,
I'm listing houses that I went on a January listing appointment
right now, yeah.
now, and
Yeah.
so like 6 months later, and um, you know,
So it just depends. And I think that, so, and I'm think through this because I'm with a lot of the girls too. And I'm no longer shadowing. Ashley is flying solo 100%. So I think that looking at the approach on that, and I think for me, when I look at that, the difference between the realtors on our team is super dependent on the actual person they're in front of. So it's funny because I felt you were going to say it depends.
mm,
I felt that was going to come out. So I think that it does depend, but having the ability to know, okay, these people are going to need a literal paper checklist that they're
mhm,
going to go off of. These folks are going to need several follow-up appointments, et cetera. So I think that as you're going through, no matter what approach that you're having with this, being flexible, to be able to kind of determine what is the game plan for each person.
mhm,
But I also think that you need to be looking at, okay, what's the follow-up? Before you leave that house, you're already pre-scheduling when you're coming back. Now that can be shifted left or right, but your closing of the circle continuously is happening where you're not open ended. And that is even if someone's coming to you 12 months, 6 months, 18 months ahead of when you will actually be putting aside in the yard. I think that every state is going to be different as far as broker advisement of when a listing agreement comes into play. But I think that the biggest thing for you is it's follow up is king. The key is in that follow up, and what are you doing to make sure you're closing that loop as far as the prep of a listing.
One thing I've been using as like a UVP is the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday I went on a listing appointment, and the client, she's a single working mom. She's got a lot going on. Her kids have a lot of toys, a lot of clothes, just like a lot of stuff, right? But there's repairs that need to be done. And I told her, I said, hey, I have a handyman who will accept payment at closing. It comes right out of your proceeds. You don't have to pay anything up front. So we can still put your best foot forward on your house without you having to pay anything up front.
Yeah. Having those people in your pocket.
Yeah. And I think that's just building relationships. That's using a trusted handyman over and over. And he knows that you're going to close the deal and get him paid.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that you partnering with them, you're going to find what the obstacle is. And sometimes, we have found that sometimes we need to find some type of creative buying situation where we're never going to make it to the market. But when you're closing that circle, and like I said, you're not going, hey, here you go, sending them off to the ocean and hoping that they sail back to you. The closing of that loop is going to help identify needs as you're returning to the property. But I also think that as you're marketing yourself for, hey, are you ready to list? No, it's not ready to list. Are you looking to sell in the next 6 months? That is your pool right now that you should start to be marketing to, because ready to list is kind of like a fire hydrant, drinking out of a fire hydrant that, oh, let me just make sure I'm 100% getting to the market. You're ready to list now. That's not the ideal situation. And what you should be looking at now is those people that you're going to list in the next 6 months, partnering with them. And I think that before they feel like they're drinking out of a fire hydrant, if they have someone that they have partnered with for 6 months, you've already secured that listing. You've already ensured that you're getting that business versus them, oh, I got to put a sign in the yard. Let me interview every person around. Look at your marketing approach and see how you're doing that. So that's a side note, extra little bonus point for you. But let's talk real quick about when we're talking about decluttering, cleaning, and all of that, furniture placement and too much furniture is also a big part. So, Ashley's talked about all essentially all hard surfaces, counters and dressers and desk and all hard surfaces should be cleared and cleaned off. But should all of the furniture remain? And we're going to say no.
It
unless
depends.
you're in Joanna Gaines' house, that's the only it depends.
Yeah.
For the most part, you're going to want to look to see for furniture placement and decluttering. It's going to include furniture possibly heading to the garage, getting rid of stuff that they wouldn't move to the next place. Regardless, I would say 90% of the time, if you're not planning on moving something, getting rid of that ahead of listing is the right choice. But you need to be partnering with them on that. Make sure that the key piece to this beautiful table is not getting sold because they're not going to move it when you needed that as part of your actual staging listing process.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to all be done up front. Like I've moved furniture has stayed. And then when we get to pictures, I'm like, this doesn't make sense because another side note is looking at the room at the direction of where the photographer's camera is going to shoot. So learning those different angles of the room so you can see what the furniture looks like, see what your staging looks like. If you need to move things, you'll see it right away when you look at those angles.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that that's one of the wraparounds too on this is that you're going to get better at this over time too. But yes, standing in the room going, okay, how would the photographer be photographing this? And I've had times too where I'm like, this is placement for photography. This is placement for actual showing. So it might make sense to have something in a location for photography and then moved around for actual showings as well. But I would say that part of your UVP is learning how to place furniture, learning how to work what they already have, learning how to say, hey, we can use these 5 things in this room, pack up the rest of it, clear all surfaces, Really look at those listing, like what are the top listing agents doing in your marketplace? What does their marketing look like? What do their homes look like? Very likely they're taking this approach, and start to learn from people that you want to model after, to
Mhm.
level up to. It's really not rocket science. It's not something you need to get a designation, certification, go to school for. It really is pausing and stepping back, breathing through the process and going, okay, what is it that is attracting buyers? And let me apply this to my listings, closing the circle and partnering with them through the process. So you briefly talked about paint,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the simplest ways. And, we're talking about cost effective approach, paint and light,
Mhm.
two pet peeves,
Yeah.
two pet peeves
Yeah. I mean, paint, you're going to see that in pictures. If it's all smudged up, if it's scuffed up and dented and chipped and
or
whatever,
purple
or
or red
purple,
or
yeah,
yellow.
or crazy colors. I listed a teal bathroom, or
I,
was it teal or purple? I don't
You
remember.
you listed a rainbow
It was a
house,
rainbow
a
house.
rainbow house, but in the height of COVID and priced really well,
Yeah.
multiple offers. Not so much right now.
Yeah.
Rainbow
Yeah,
house probably wouldn't have sold.
paint for sure. Not every house is going to need it. It might just need touch up, but the lighting, make sure the light bulbs aren't burned out.
Yeah, literally,
Like you
literally.
can see that in a photo, and a lot of times photographers won't put a light bulb in with Photoshop, So,
Well, and even the color of the lights too,
mhm.
because not every house needs to have LED lights, white lights, yellow light. Like looking at that and going, hey, I could totally change. Like this teal bathroom would look so much better under a yellow type of light bulb versus a bright LED that's electrifying it to the next degree.
Mhm.
So looking at that and going, don't be afraid to switch out light bulbs to make sure, bottom line, make sure every light bulb is working, but changing the tones of them to help with the rooms. Never underestimate a $2 light bulb. I mean,
Yeah.
huge. That's part of our listing prep for sure.
And I think too, just putting a little basket in your car, like a listing basket, you got your tape measure, your notebook, the light bulbs, things like that, magic eraser, stuff that you can use to just benefit your client.
Yeah, and we've built that over time.
Mhm.
So our listing prep has built over time. And just think about those things that you've had to walk away from over and over again. Light bulbs has been one of them.
Yeah.
Little nails have been one of them, command strips, et cetera, et cetera. So any of those things that you're using consistently, having them just on hand. But when you're going through and prepping, and for us, the light bulbs and like the accommodation of changing and switching and, doing all that, that's a part of a service we provide. But I definitely have had sellers go, "Oh, I know that vanity light, it needs to be switched out or whatever." Another piece to the puzzle is with that, they're all working, but are they all the same?
Mhm.
So if you have a 6 light vanity light over a bathroom sink, it does not need to be yellow, soft
Mhm.
white, LED. You need to have every single one of those light bulbs looking the same. Doesn't matter what it is, and each room is going to be dependent, but they all need to be the same type of light bulb, the same shape of light bulb. Just such a huge pet peeve, but I feel like it makes such a difference. Like I don't think you really realize until you see the difference in the photos.
Mhm.
A big change
Yeah.
for sure.
I think if I had whenever I have a burnt out light bulb, it bugs me. Like I change it. I'm like, just
Yeah,
change it.
just change it. Just change it right now, right now.
Yeah.
But I think paint is one of those underrated things that when you're talking about these clients who are like, oh, I can't, I don't have enough, it doesn't have to be professional painting as long as they have the skill to be able to do it. But I think you really need to be looking at right now, what is the overall flow of the entire house and how are you going to be marketing that? Because if you have a really, really pretty, let's say yellow kitchen, and you walk into a blue living room and then the kids' rooms are pink and purple, and then when you look at the big picture, how is this the click through the MLS, through the marketing websites, et cetera? How is that going to appear? Even though in person it looks really, really great, how is it going to appear online? And some of the approaches to this might be where you're like, this house could absolutely sell. Well, maybe you need to leave the pink and purple bedrooms out of the MLS photos if you're not going to have them neutralize them. Maybe you're not going to put the yellow kitchen right next to the blue kitchen and the click through the MLS.
Mhm.
So be thinking about that you could easily, I mean, when I talk about Ashlee's rainbow house, I don't think I ever step foot in that house.
Mm-mm.
But when I went through that gallery, I was like, red kitchen, yellow living room, green boys room, purple girls room.
Yeah.
And I created this story of a rainbow house. And we had to overcome that through the MLS and how we painted that picture in that story.
Hmm.
And I think that people think I got to show every single aspect of a house in order to get, like to do my job at 100%. Give yourself freedom to do 50% as far as exposure. You're trying to essentially catfish people through that front door to get the showings, because more showings is going to return the possibility of the offer. So just when you're thinking through this whole approach, if you're like, okay, I can't change everything to accessible beige or perfect grayish or whatever color that you're suggesting, if you can't get them to neutralize it completely, then you got to shift your brain in going, okay, well, how am I going to market this effectively? Because what's online versus what's working in person might be two different things.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick break because we have so much more to dive into. We're going to come back and talk about actual staging. Now we set the stage to be able to make that happen. Are you looking for ways to become more efficient and save time in your day as a real estate agent?
We've got the thing for you. We have created 18 done-for-you email templates that cover the entire process on the buying side and the selling side.
The best part is that this is only $49 and includes customizable email templates for the process to get you through start to finish with your buyers and sellers.
Head over to realestatable.com/email templates, and that's where you can find them. All right, guys, welcome back. Like Tiffany said, we're going to talk about staging placement, which I feel like is more your wheelhouse than it is mine. When we go to the storage unit and we're pulling staging and we're looking at the pictures and stuff, Tiffany's like, I already know what we need. And so it's just, I'm just like, go girl, you find that little bird and that candlestick and you pair them together.
You place that so good. No, so super passionate about this for sure. I think it's just something that naturally I have a passion for, but an eye for that as well. So, but I definitely think it's something that can be trained. Ashlee's not giving herself enough credit. If she had to go off into a deserted island, she could still stage that deserted island.
Oh, I could, but I'm just worried about the judgment of Tiffany.
We have a little bit of a situation that occurred. Let me tell you, you need to be thinking about, this is one of the key tips to start to walk away with. I assumed that Ashlee knew this. We learned this the hard way. The style of the house and the actual decor and the furniture that are in there are going to just drive your decision. So unless you're asking them to completely move out, if you have a more European styled furnished house, if you have a more country farmhouse styled house, more modern, more craftsman, etc., it's going to drive your decisions and what you're placing in there. And with that, as you're starting to build your staging inventory, as you're starting to build the decor that you're keeping on hand to make this happen, you're going to have to try to figure out how to keep neutral situations, neutral pieces to help with pretty much any type of house. And so that's what she's getting at, is like, okay, how do I need to know farmhouse versus more modern versus etc. So I think that a couple of things that I look at. So if you are baby agent and you're like, I am not about to have a warehouse full of staging. We have a little bit of a shopping problem, which has yielded big returns for us. But we, over the years, probably have close to 10,000 pieces of staging in a storage unit. And so that has evolved over time based off of style and based off of trends, etc. But that's probably not most of you guys. You're probably not going to spend a large amount of money to go start a staging inventory. And so when I first started doing this, it's funny. I have a joke. My husband said, do you have a lot of listings right now? And he would know that because the decor at my house would start to empty out. So the stuff that was on my bookshelves, my nightstands, etc., I literally would stage for my personal home. And then when I didn't have listings, it came back and my house was pretty again. That was baby Tiffany 15 plus years ago when I didn't have the money, but I was like, oh, this needs side lamps. Well, my side lamps at home would work because I didn't have the money to be able to go spend $100 on side lamps, but my ones that I had in my house worked. It needed a centerpiece and the one in my house ended up working, etc. So I think that was an extreme scenario, and it was definitely when I was listing 1 or 2 houses a year. Definitely was listing houses that were like my house. But then from there, I started to go, okay, well, now I have 2, 3, 4 houses at a time, and I can't stage from my one house, but still didn't have a ton of nest eggs. So from there, I started to shop garage sales in higher price point neighborhoods. That was actually one of the best ways that I drove inventory to my staging. Higher price point neighborhoods, garage sales for there, and then thrift stores. Never underestimating thrift stores in the right locations. That really, I would say, probably a good 5 to 6 year run of being able to stage different type of style homes based off of that at a really, really low cost. So I think that that's a good approach. Probably not staging out of your own personal house. That was desperate times, desperate measures.
I
But
don't think that that's a bad thing though. Like
yeah,
I have stuff that I would probably use in a at a listing, you
there's
know?
been times that I've put stuff into listings. I'm like, that's coming home with me after this. That centerpiece is perfect off of that. But no, it's not a bad approach. But I think that when you look at that, especially when you're talking about longevity and really creating like the UVP for this, there has to be a plan for you to actually build longevity out of this. And that I think about the agents that have trained with us or the agents that are wanting to kind of do this whole concept. They start with a couple of shelves in their garage, and they just start to pull things together. And I know that we have done, especially I think about here lately, like your Copperstone listing. When you're like, okay, this is such a unique scenario. Like this house is not necessarily anything that have sitting in our inventory. When we started to build, what we would do is we would take those higher price point listings and we would shop the staging, literally staging list that was needed specifically for this house. That stuff would then go into our inventory, but
Mhm.
we weren't trying to place and fit puzzle pieces into a different puzzle. We were like, okay, Copperstone needs to be staged. Here's the list of everything we need. We need, um, a pla-
Candlesticks,
candlesticks, a
mirrors.
whole setup
Mhm.
for a fireplace. Since then, Copperstone has moved into 2 or 3 listings since then, that
Mhm.
the materials that we bought. So that would be another approach to it. When you're building just inventory and you're shopping garage sales, thrift stores, it's like, hey, this is the best stuff that we have for options then. But also you could be going, okay, I have a listing. I'm shopping specific for this. And then that stuff is going to go into inventory placed into Copperstone's probably in 5 different listings now at this
Mhm.
point, after we pulled that. So looking at that approach, a couple different ways you can be doing it. But I think that at the very least, you can afford, a $50 budget over the month of shopping garage sales and thrift stores, $100, whatever that looks
Well,
like.
I think even if you're not shopping
Mhm,
garage sales, like the stuff that we buy, I'm not saying it's like cheap looking, but like
mhm.
we're balling on a budget, right? So we're going to Walmart and we're getting like how much are those hand towels? Like 250,
Yeah.
$3. So two hand towel if a house has two bathrooms, you need two hand towels. White is probably best. That's your best friend
Yep.
right there. Two big bath towels. And
$3.
yeah, and then a shower curtain.
Hmm.
So and a soap dispenser. Like there's things that you can get for cheap. I mean, if you have $100 and you go to Walmart, you could probably stage at least the bathrooms at a minimum plus the kitchen.
Well, and the other thing too is that you have to be thinking ahead. So you close a buyer,
Mhm.
you need to be starting to do like, okay, I need inventory of white
Yeah.
towels. I need inventory of white soap dispensers. I need shower curtains. I need shower rods. I need all, those things. So don't necessarily look and go because listings cost money. You're looking at photography, videography, the marketing dollars, etc., the sign, the lockbox. When you look at that, you need to be going, okay, I need to be considering what is to come.
Mhm.
So you have a buyer that you close, take some of that money and go, I'm these are my standard things that I'm going to be needing to be able to put into listings that are coming. For sure. The other part of this too is prepping for a longer period of time prepares you as you're prepping them and having them declutter and rearrange, etc. You're also going, I know I'm going to have to place this many towels, this many shower curtains, this many this,
Mhm.
that, etc. It gives you a longer period of time to be able to kind of prep that idea as well. So, um, what other things I know I could ramble on and kind of go into tangents. What other things do you think have been like from a new agent standpoint have been just like key tips that you think that would be taking away if you're trying to create this system for yourself?
I think when you're starting, just getting the most neutral items that you can,
Mhm.
stuff that you can reuse in any house. We like the little Target plants. They have a white base and then it's just greenery on the top. And I think those are $5.
Yeah, and they catch sales a ton of times too. You can be watching
Yeah,
that
they're
stuff.
like always in stock and they have different kinds of leaves. And those kinds of cheap finds that are super neutral and you can reuse over and over, that's what you're looking for. Again, standing in the room at the angles of the photographer and looking at the room like a buyer would. How is this going to turn out? Um, Making sure that you have staging. So if you have a tray and maybe it's a really open concept home, you want to make sure that that tray doesn't have a sign that's like has its back to the living room or whatever. You want to make sure it looks good from the front and the back. So creating kind of like a nice little visual piece there.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that too when you're looking at all of these things, like when you're like, okay, how do I know what to put where? That tip of being neutral, so it doesn't matter the style of the home, your those white plants literally will work in every single style of a home. It's going to be trial and error, and it's going to really be based off availability when you're actually staging. I do think that when you're looking at, the affordability aspect of it, and we look at like Hobby Lobby's clearance that happens that goes up to a 90% off. You sometimes have to be taking a chance and going, okay, this is a really great deal and I might have a house that needs X, Y, and Z. But as you're creating the inventory, you're going to find it being more cost effective when you're not going Copperstone example. Here's the list of everything we need, and we need to go shop that in a 2 to 3 day period. When you have the ability to go, okay, I know that this sale is going to be coming on for Hobby Lobby's clearance for this, or for Ross is a really great place. Marshalls, Target, uh,
TJ
TJ
Maxx.
Maxx, yeah, any of those places that you can be shopping their clearance in a prep of the listings to come, the better off that you're going to be on building this in a low cost environment. Now, there's plenty of people that will charge a staging, a listing, a marketing, a whatever fee to translate this to their clients. That might be super common in your marketplace. For us, we have found that the UVP of this just being part of who we are, it's a standard. It's not a choice that you can tier up, tier down. It is just literally you partner with us and we're going to do everything we can to put the best foot forward. This has always been a no cost. I can't imagine that it would ever change from a no cost, no upfront cost to them. But I think that when you're looking at this, I would approach it that way. At least in your baby steps of real estate, you need to be looking at just partnering with me. This is the benefit of making that happen, at no cost to your seller, no additional cost to your seller as far as that goes. So anything else for inside? I feel like we could talk and dive into so many different tips and tricks. One of the cool things is if you want to see kind of how we've perfected this over time, follow us. Follow our team on social media at Tennessee's
Mhm.
Elite. You can find us on Instagram or Facebook. We post all of our listings there, listing videos, so we can't really hide in Photoshop much with the listing videos, but
Mhm.
the photos, etc. If you kind of want to see some tips and tricks and like how do you kind of make this happen? Funny story, one of our agents that trained with us as a baby agent, he went off and he went solo at a certain point in time. And it was so funny to see him. I was like, did he take that tray with that arrangement from our storage unit? Like I had to go check to see, because literally what he did was model after
Mhm.
off us, because it's not rocket science. It's not a secret. And lo and behold, the tray, the plant, the bird, the books, all of the things were still sitting. He didn't steal it. He took the concept of it and literally styled the same arrangement. So take our ideas, steal
Mhm.
our ideas, look to see how you can make those things happen. Houses are pretty much similar. And I think that you could yield a bunch of ideas just by kind of watching and seeing what we're doing as well. So that's your insider tip takeaway for today.
All right, let's talk about the outside of the house because down here in the South, it's humid. So for us, like the siding, for example, it gets that mildew growth on there. And so
Mhm.
that looks horrible in pictures. It's not a good first impression. So a lot of times for me, I'm telling my clients, hey, we need to get this siding power washed. We need to get all this off the house. and just kind of increase the curb appeal. Like it's already done for you. One of my sellers just did that. And then there's like some sort of 1 year sealant or preventative
Mm.
something that they got in addition to. So their house should be good for a year. I don't know. I've never heard of that until
I
she said
need
that.
that. I need that for my house. I need that
Oh,
company for my house. Literally.
I'll
I
have to
think
ask her who it was.
that for me, first impression, think about how long you stand outside on the front porch with your clients when never is a lockbox a situation
Yeah.
that works for your favor when you have eyes standing behind you. So think about that. And I literally, will stand out there with the client at that front step, at that front porch, et cetera, and just say, hey, let's just sit here and imagine you have a buyer and an agent who is trying to privately panic and have a panic attack in their head because they can't get into this lockbox. And it's now been a few minutes. And what are the things that you see right now as a consumer? Because as owners, they're coming through the garage, they're coming through hands full on the phone with the kids. And so how many times are they actually looking at the front of their house from a consumer standpoint? So I purposely will recreate that kind of scenario and ask them, what do you think needs to be addressed? And then I'll add to that list. Specifically from that front step, front porch, front door, because that is so true. Like last night, I was out showing and showing instructions completely wrong.
Oh,
Sat
no.
outside in the front porch for 20 minutes trying to reach this owner. And I'm like, of course, this is your favorite listing. Of course. And so trying to reach the owner's agent. And the amount of stuff we pointed out, it was like, we already knocked this off the list before we even got through the
Mm-hmm.
front door because we spent so much time on this dirty, non-swept off, stinky front area.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme scenario, but I think that you can definitely help create the yes as you travel through that front door. What would you say as far as like budget friendly things? I think about the stuff that we personally have done, but budget friendly things um, that people can do to the front exterior of their house.
I mean, you can paint the shutters,
Yes.
paint the front door, remulch, pull
Yes.
weeds, trim your bushes, sweep your front porch. I mean, there's so much. I feel like, I mean, for me, I'm always looking at my front landscaping like a consumer and I freaking hate it
Yeah.
because my front landscaping I'm ready to rip out. We're doing that next year because we did the back this year and I'm over the landscape. So, but yeah, just pulling those weeds, just making it seem like it's already done. The seller's not going to have to do this landscaping job when they move in. They can just move in and paint or do whatever they're going to do when they
Well,
move in.
and I think about all the drive-through traffic that you're getting just by consumers and potential buyers just driving past. And if you have that right first impression, we're getting more return on that than, okay, how great does the inside look? And hopefully people see it online, etc. So the outside of the house, I think, is critical in so many different ways. I think that you not only sitting at that front step for the actual buyers, but stepping back out to the street there. I think there's been so many times where we've missed shutters that have needed painted because they're the second story and we're in such a bubble with the seller of what's right here and what's in our face with mulch, with landscape, with flowers, etc. But stepping back, the siding being pressure washed, that's a huge thing as
You don't go
well.
on the roof to paint the second story shutters
I,
like me?
I mean, we have
Yeah.
multiple times, but I think that when you're looking at that, the whole goal would be for your client to be um addressing this themselves, right?
Yeah.
For this is their to-do list, or we're going to hire someone to do the list. But I think that when all else fails, if a shutters need painted, if a door needs painted, if mulch needs to be laid, we are absolutely doing those things.
Yep.
One of the other things that we do as part of our staging, and we just kind of prep and prepare this, is we're putting a new front door mat at every single front door. So unless that seller has just refreshed that, it's 90% of the time we're switching out that doormat for one that we don't recycle. So that's a $10-15 cost in every single listing. But having that first impression of a new doormat, usually a wreath on the front door that we do recycle, something neutral when it comes to that. Maybe some side plants or side decor, in the different sides of the front door. But we do stage out the front, depending. Every
Yeah.
house is different.
Well, it could just be chair pillows on the chair.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a
Yep.
plant on the table that they already have. Just kind of creating like a welcoming environment.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And there's so many different tips and tricks and like how you can do this cost effectively, like the best place to buy a doormat, the best place for $5 outdoor pillows. If you guys are stumped, or if you have like, hey, this is the room we're trying to stage, where is the best place to shop? I've had agents that have worked with us over the years that are just like, I cannot figure out this space. Help me. And been able to say, hey, you need to go to Ross, shop the front door mats. Those are going to be $6 to $7 from there. You need to do the outdoor pillows. Walmart has the $5 neutral pillows. And being able to kind of give you our insight on where we have found the best way to do this for the least amount of money. Shoot us a picture. We're happy to help kind of virtually stage
I
with
also
you.
feel like Walmart is upscaling their decor to be more like Target.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're like, don't sleep on Walmart
Yeah.
because they have some cute stuff right now.
For sure. And I think that if you follow them online or on their website, they kind of style stuff together that you're like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? I think we have dove head over heels down the mountain, through the valley, and all the way to a for sale sign in the front yard.
Yeah. If you guys have any tips or tricks that you missed or that we missed, feel free to send us a message or a comment on one of our posts and let us know.
Yes.
Because we're always looking to grow too.
Literally, I feel like there's so many things that we've learned from other people that we have followed. Like a lot of the tips that we gave you are things that we did to be able to help perfect the way that we're doing this. I think that if you partner and you are surrounding yourself with people that are 1 to 2 to 7 to 10 steps ahead of where you want to be, is the best way to grow in an environment, for sure. All right, so we definitely went overboard with so much value packed into this episode. And I think if you have not pulled 2 or 3 things that you can do to be a better listing agent, whether or not you already have systems in place, you probably need to go back and re-listen to this episode. So what do you think is your biggest takeaway?
I think creating a basket for your car, right, with your tape measure, your light bulbs, things that you might need to help prepare your seller, like maybe day of photos. And the other tip, I've said it a couple times in the episode, standing in the room at the angle that the photographer is going to look. The other thing is setting aside part of your checks for your expenses so that you can build an inventory for yourself for your listings, and focusing when you're starting out, just focusing on those neutral items that you can use in any house. It doesn't matter the style. Lots of whites, lots of tans, like lighter color neutrals.
Well, and I think if you've not taken away anything else from this episode, taking away the prep, the decluttering, the cleaning, the preparing your cellar, the rearranging of furniture, if nothing else, that is cost you free 50, no dollars. You can absolutely learn and perfect the way that you're prepping and preparing your cellars. I think that that's one thing that we're missing the boat on as we're trying to, I guess, quantify our listings. And, quantity versus quality does not get you further faster at all. So I think slowing down and making sure that you're prepping and partnering. And one of my takeaways right now, and even to myself, one of my big takeaways is, what marketing am I doing now to get those listings in the next 6 months? I want to partner with someone for the long term to show that value for the better return and the better results of that listing. So what am I doing right now to create marketing to get those listings in the next 6 months? That's my takeaway.
All right. Well, if you guys found this episode helpful, make sure you give it a 5-star review, and we will see you next time on Realestatable.